It is Wednesday, the 12th day of July 2023. Welcome to Primetime News right here on KUTV. A lot has been happening in the country throughout the day, including Azimio, or rather protests that have dominated the better part of the day, as well as the visit of the Republic of Kenya by the Iranian President Raisi. We're going to be telling you more on these stories, and also contrary to how we do things right here on the Wednesday Primetime News, we're going to be having an interview on climate justice with two climate justice activists. But even before that, let us take a look at what we have in the news headlines. Azimio leader Raila Odinga cancels Kamukunji rally, accuses police of violence. Police and protesters engage in running battles across the country during mass action demonstrations organized by opposition. Matatu operators down tools owing to government's move to re-evaluate drivers before renewal of licenses and rising cost of fuel. And Kenyan and Iranian governments agree on 5 memoranda of understanding in a bid to foster bilateral ties. Our sign language interpreter this evening is Sami Okelo. My name is Joseph KEES. We are also live on YouTube at KUTV Kenya, and you can share with us your feedback on Twitter at KUTV_Kenya and at KEES Joseph Kenya. Now, Azimio La Umoja One Kenya leader Raila Odinga has suspended today's planned anti-government rally, which is to be held at Kamukunji grounds in Nairobi. Odinga said the move was a strategic decision made by the coalition after receiving intelligence of a plan to violently attack attendees of the rally, condemning the police brutality witnessed during today's demonstrations. Patrick Odor has more on that report.
As protesters made their way to Nairobi's Kamukunji area that was designated for a rally by Azimio Brigade, meant to push the government to lower the high cost of living and abolish new taxes under the Finance Act 2023, Azimio leader Raila Odinga issued a ton of events, cancelling the Kamukunji rally, citing the safety of protesters against police excessive force during the demonstration.
So there is no moving on until Ruto comes out openly and agrees to repeal the Finance Act and embarks on other measures to lower the cost of living. There is no moving on until Ruto comes out loud and clear with the need to have a bipartisan reconstitution of IBC, with a statement of the fired IBC commissioners.
During his address, Odinga condemned the excessive use of force by the police during anti-government protests, adding that the police should be held accountable for the chaos witnessed across the country, further calling for restraint and respect for the rights of peaceful demonstrators.
Unfortunately, our otherwise peaceful protests has been accompanied by injuries and possible deaths in various parts of the country. Police have shot, injured and killed protesters in various parts of the country, including here in Nairobi. Scores of protesters have been arrested for participating in an exercise that is clearly protected by our constitution.
Odinga noted that Kenyans are tired of hunger and economic suppression, emphasizing their unwavering commitment to their cause. He thanked Kenyans for turning up in large numbers for today's protest, asserting that the fight against the government will continue.
People are tired of walking from one corner of this city to another. one town to another, one office to another, trying to find a job and finding no job. Parents are tired and ashamed of returning home empty-handed in the evening after an all-day struggle to get something for their families. People are tired of economic and social stagnation they find themselves in.
With majority of Kenyans continue to lament over the high cost of living, the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya leaders have maintained to continue with the protest until the government adheres to their demand. Patrick Oduor, KUTV, Nairobi.
At the same time, Nairobi County mass action demonstrations saw hundreds of protesters battle with police officers. This even after President William Ruto demanded a stop of what he calls anarchy. Running battles between protesters and police officers have been witnessed today. Edward Nyamo has more.
Today's protest saw police officers engage in running battles where rioters stand up in large numbers, overwhelming police officers. In Shauri Moyo area here in Nairobi County, Azimio supporters stand up in large numbers to present their grievances about the difficult economic times. However, police officers took control of the situation where they dispersed demonstrators by throwing tear gas at Azimio protesters.
Rezo, mimi naweza kuambia hivi tu. Hata kama unatujengea makeja ziko fiti, wewe jaribu tushikishe food tu. Hiyo unga na mafuta ya kupika na petroli. Kisha hizo bro na tax pia. Na ufungue sava.
Inspector General of Police Service Jafeth Koome has vowed to use all means to disperse Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party demonstrators. As of Wednesday, access to Nairobi from Mombasa Road was cut off at Mlolongo due to protest in the area. Goons engaged in looting and destruction of property in the area, with at least 3 people having been killed as protests escalated in Mlolongo. In the central business district, only a few businesses were opened, with less foot traffic on the streets and heavy police patrols being seen.
We are fed up with your government. No Baba, no peace. No Baba, no Baba, no Baba. Comrade Oye!
Running battles between Azimio la Umoja supporters and police officers has been observed in many parts in Nairobi County, this being the second planned protest in Kenya after the bipartisan talks failed to take effect. Edward Nyamo reporting for KUTV, Shauri Moyo, Nairobi.
And business owners across different counties are counting losses as a result of the Azimio anti-government protests held today. In Nairobi County, streets in the central business district seemed to be deserted, with majority of businesses closed. In Kisii County, the situation escalated as protesters barricaded roads, crippling business activities in Kisii town. Ruth Wanjiru has more on this.
The second week of the Azimio anti-governmental protests weighed down on businesses across different counties as the doors to majority of businesses remained closed. In Nairobi County, the CBD was seen to be deserted, with most of the roads leading to the city blocked by the police. However, the few who opened up their businesses complained of slow sales and lack of customers. According to a section of business persons, the high cost of living motivated them to open up their shops despite the announcement about the protest.
Okay, ile kitu imenisukuma ni uchumi. Sababu hiyo maandamano hakuna vile itaniletea chakula kwa nyumba. So ile kidogo tu nitaweza kuuza, nitashukuru.
Mimi ni lazima niamke nikuje nitafutie watoto unga, siwezi lala kwa nyumba. Yeah.
Ni hali ya maisha. Hali ya maisha ndio sasa, uchumi ndio mbaya. Sasa hata ukaa kwa nyumba utakula nini?
In Kisii County, the situation was different as the demonstrations were characterized by roadblocks and fires that affected business operations in Kisii town. Most shops around the town remained closed in fear of property destruction. In Narok town, the situation was peaceful, but majority of businesses remained closed, including motorists who chose to withdraw their vehicles from the main stage, which also crippled transport in the town. However, a section of Kenyans have urged the president and the opposition leader Raila Odinga to hold talks so as to salvage the country's ailing economy.
Mimi kitu nitasema suluhisho ni kwamba watu serikali ijaribu kuona kwamba maisha ya watu at least imekuwa rahisi kidogo.
Mimi maoni yangu gava watu wakae chini waongee, unaona? Mwisho wa siku sisi ndio tunaumia, si hao viongozi.
As the Azimio coalition holds its stance to continue with the anti-government protest, businesses across the country stand affected, especially in the hard economic times.
Now, with this being the second week of the Azimio anti-governmental protest, businesses around the CBD remain closed. And even though some business operators were confident enough to open their businesses, they still complain of minimal or no sales at all. Ruth Wanjiru, KUTV, Nairobi.
And halted businesses, barricaded roads, burnt tires and occasional tear gas were scenes witnessed in various cities across the country as Azimio supporters responded to Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition leader Raila Odinga's call to take to the streets once again and express their grievances in regards to the increasing cost of living. Protests were witnessed in major cities including Kisumu, Mombasa and Nairobi. Yvonne Kimoma with more.
Kondele area, which has now become the epicenter of demos in Kisumu, was today impassable as protesters once again took to the streets. The protesters barricaded major roads, including the Kakamega-Kisumu Road and the Busia-Kisumu Road at Otonglo near the Kisumu International Airport. The protesting youth were on the streets as early as 6 a.m. with the police spending the better part of the day barring the youth from accessing the CBD. Later on, the protesters were seen carrying a coffin while chanting anti-government slogans. Protests were also witnessed in Kisii and Nyamira counties. In Nyamira, protesting youths were spotted with some of the tear gas canisters already used by the police to disperse them as they continued to confront the anti-riot police. Kisii protesters barricaded roads while burning tires. In Mombasa, police had a hard time dispersing protesters as they refused to maintain calm, stating that demos were a constitutional right. In Trans Nzoia County, business people, including Mama Mbogas, took to the streets in protest of the high cost of living, stating that they are more than willing to sign the Azimio petition. Inspector General Japheth Koome had yesterday banned the demos, stating that although picketing and demonstrating is a constitutional right, previous demos organized by the Azimio party had been chaotic and at times had led to death. Yvonne Kimoma, KU TV.
And matatu operators went on a strike earlier today, paralyzing transport in various cities across the country. The public transport operators are lamenting over government's directive to re-evaluate drivers before the renewal of their driving license, as well as the rise in the cost of fuel. This comes despite Transport Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen in postponing the evaluation to September 1st. Jacob Okello reports.
Transport across Kenya was today paralyzed as matatu operators downed their tools in protest over the high cost of fuel and the mandatory driver testing despite its suspension by Transport Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen. In his previous directive, Murkomen said that the retesting of public service vehicles and commercial service vehicles drivers to continue as a way of assessing their competency before the renewal of driving license. In a press release postponing the implementation of reassessment law, Murkomen said that, and I quote, "The ministry and the stakeholders have agreed on the formation of a multi-agency committee that will, among others, review the grievances raised by the drivers and conductors. Taking note of the above, I hereby ask the retesting of drivers until 1st September 2023 to give the multi-agency committee time to address the rising concerns." End of quote. Matatu operators were not moved by Murkomen's retraction of his directive. In Nyeri, the operators turned the stage into a volleyball and skip ropes playground as their counterparts in Nanyuki turned the stage into football pitch. Garissa County was not left behind as matatu operators put their vehicles to parking as they complained about the increase in fuel prices and retesting of drivers. The Matatu Owners Association on Tuesday, July 11, It clarified that their vehicles will continue operating after initially planning for a strike that was slated today. Jacob Okello, KUTV.
Right, away from matters, protests and strikes, Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi was in the country today for his official state visit to Kenya. Raisi earlier today held bilateral talks with President William Ruto in a bid to shore up relations between the two countries. The Iranian leader is expected to make stops in Uganda and Zimbabwe in a bid to galvanize ties with Africa. Munene Weru has more.
In the regions of 6 a.m. in the morning, the President of the Islamic Republic of Iran jetted into the country, commencing his official visit in Kenya. The Iranian leader's convoy then took the route to State House, Nairobi, and was treated to a military pomp before quickly embarking on bilateral dialogue with his host, President William Ruto. The opportunity enabled the two leaders to reaffirm their commitment to strengthening relations between Iran and Kenya. 5 memoranda of understanding were penned by the two countries, with Kenya set to benefit from bilateral partnership in the fields of agriculture, technology, and blue economy.
Today, President Raisi and I have witnessed the signing of 5 memoranda of understanding on cooperation in information, communication and technology, fisheries, animal health and livestock products, and investment promotion. These memoranda will enhance and further deepen our bilateral relations for sustainable growth and development between our two countries.
Deliberations between President Ruto and his Iranian counterpart also initiated plans of a motor vehicle assembly to be set up in Mombasa, as well as a technology and information hub. These, the leaders believe, will go a long way to yield job openings and show up investments for the advantage of the two countries.
His Excellency President Raisi conveyed to me information that will be good news for stakeholders in our mechanical and automotive sector, including dealers, engineers, technicians, and other workers. Iran's intention to set up a motor vehicle assembly plant in Mombasa to manufacture an indigenous Iranian vehicle that has now been given the Kiswahili name Kifaru, meaning rhino. And I hope it will be a tough one, Your Excellency.
President Raisi's visit was slated for Tuesday, but the Ministry of Foreign Affairs released an 11th-minute statement to reschedule the trip to pave way for final arrangements. The leader later in the day toured the Jomo Kenyatta Mausoleum before setting off to Uganda to resume with his African tour. Neneweru, KUTV.
All right, that story by Munene Weru takes us on our first break of the night. We still have plenty more ahead, including an interview I told you about earlier on climate justice. Make sure you stay tuned for that. Primetime News takes a break. We'll be back shortly.
Are you an aspiring media practitioner, a graduate, or you just want to advance your skills in television production? Then welcome to Kenyatta University, where education meets innovation. KUTV, the premier university television station in Kenya, is now offering short courses in TV studio, field technical operations, and video editing. Through these courses, you will acquire hands-on skills on camera operations, media production, lighting techniques, audio-visual editing, and sound and visual control, and how to operate key equipment in modern TV control room. Enroll today at KUTV and discover your full potential in cutting-edge TV broadcasting. Graduates of these courses will receive professional certificates. For more information, visit our offices at KUTV Studios or call us on 020-870-4252 or 020-870-4252. 4255 or SMS us on 0739 110 544. KUTV, a new experience.
Lola is an app that gives you a chance to watch videos, listen to audios, and read articles wherever you are for free. Motivational stories, dramas, campus life, technology, lifestyle, adventure, sports, academics, jobs, entertainment, and more. Download Lola now on Play Store. All you need, you got Lola.
Welcome back to Primetime News. Let's continue with the broadcast. Now, 12 more bodies have been exhumed in the third day of the fourth phase exhumation in Shakahola Forest in Kilifi County. As the exercise continues, religious institutions have continued to elicit or rather to give their reactions by condemning the bizarre Shakahola Forest incident, where 372 bodies have been so far exhumed. Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki, appearing before Senate yesterday, emphasized that law enforcement will be strengthened to tame the proliferation of unaccountable religious activities, including indoctrination of innocent people. Dorothy Musyoka with more.
A total of 372 bodies have so far been exhumed from Shakahola Forest, according to the latest statistics of Phase 4 exercise, with 114 bodies in the first phase, 129 in the second phase, 95 bodies in the third phase, and in the fourth phase of exhumation, 32 bodies have been exhumed in the 3 days exercise, including 12 bodies exhumed today. Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration Kithure Kindiki, who appeared before the ad hoc Senate committee on Tuesday, noted that the government will push for legal reforms to tame rogue preachers who mislead their followers through scriptures.
All those aspects, when they come to religion, must be arrested by the law. We must prevent ministers of religion from using this important right to freedom of worship and freedom of religion, from using that space to cause social harm. And there is nothing unconstitutional about that.
Speaking in Nanyuki during the Presidential Task Force on the review of the legal and regulation framework governing religious institutions, religious leaders from various churches in Laikipia County condemned the Shakahola incident, citing that regulation of churches would go a long way in protecting Kenyans from religious leaders with ulterior motives.
Kile ningeomba ni serikali tushikane na kanisa tuweze kufanya kazi pamoja, na wale wachungaji ambao wanafundisha watu wafundishe mambo inayofaa. Tusitoke katika njia ya Mungu, tufundishe watu mambo mengine ambaye haifai hata kidogo.
Hiyo katiba imekuja siku ya leo, tumeiona kwa makaratasi, ilikuwa ya 2010 na nikaona ni mzuri, kwa sababu hata vile tunaundumu makanisa tutakuwa sawa, kwa sababu sheria imekuja ile mzuri na tutaendelea kuundumu.
In the fourth phase, the government has identified 40 new graves in Shakahola. The Interior Board said yesterday emphasized that law enforcement will be strengthened to tame the proliferation of unaccountable religious activities, and that the government must win the case against ill-fated preacher Pastor Paul Mackenzie. Dorothy Musyoka, KUTV.
And the Kenya Secondary School Heads Association has formed a special team mandated to regulate school uniform prices after parents' uproar on high school uniform prices from schools and official school uniform shops, calling for a change considering the overburdening effects of the country's economy. Lynette Minor reports.
It is a relief at last for overburdened parents as the Kenya Secondary School Heads Association, led by Chairman Kahi Indimuli, formed a special team that will henceforth regulate school uniform prices. This comes days after Kesha Chairman Kahi refuted claims that high school principals have turned school to money-making institutions, even after the government abolished principals from selling uniforms.
When you see us tell them, buy in shop A, it's not because we have hit some agreement with shop A. It's because that shop A won the tender having qualified through the process. When we say come and get it in school, it's because we have asked shop A, make it easier for our parents to come and collect uniform in schools. We can't, because we are all parents. We cannot knowingly fail to make our children go to school because we've made uniform very prohibitive.
This special team comprises of both counties and national officials who have been mandated to ensure school uniforms are affordable to parents while ensuring they maintain good quality. In support of the Kenya Secondary School Heads Association decision, Kahi, who is also Machakos Boys High School principal, has stated that this is a golden opportunity for the overstretched parents to access uniforms easily, safely, and affordably. Kahi claims that the main challenge that has resulted to high uniform prices is school administrators grouping boarding items together with uniforms, a challenge that the team is mandated to solve. The formation of the special team has given hope to parents on being considered at a time when the country's cost of living is on the rise. Lynette Maina, KUTV.
Right, let's take a look at what is happening in the world of sports, where the Eldoret round of Kenya National Rally Champions will kick off on August 5. Eldoret has been missing from the national calendar for some time now due to organizational challenges. The region is known to set a buffet of everything good and bitter in rallying with unrivaled landscape and roads. Jagjit Pata and Dennis Mondet from Eldoret are members of WRC Safari Rally Local Organizing Committee, who are looked upon to redeem the image and reputation of Eldoret Rally, which was once rated the most competitive in the national calendar from invaluable experience they gained from the sporting arm of the WRC Safari Rally. And former Netherlands goalkeeper and Ajax executive Edin van der Sar is out of life-threatening danger but remains in intensive care in hospital after brain hemorrhage. In a statement on Tuesday, Ajax confirmed that Edwin is stable in the intensive care. The 52-year-old, who played for Amsterdam's Ajax and then Manchester United, fell ill while on holiday in Croatia. The 130 times capped Van der Sar played for Ajax from 1990 to 1999, winning the Champions League in 1995. He announced quitting his role in May after the worst season in 14 years for the historic Dutch club, which finished third in the Eredivisie. Right, we are taking a short break right here on Primetime News. We'll be back with an interview on climate justice. Make sure you stay tuned for that. We'll resume shortly.
Anemia is a group of inherited disorders. This results into the red blood cells contorting into a sickle shape, and this also causes shortage of the red blood cells and can also cause block of blood flow, which causes pain.
but this is an abnormality in the red blood cells from the hemoglobin, which the patient has inherited. The patient inherits it from the parents. The patient to inherit it, both parents must be carriers.
From Rwanda, Kigali. Shout out to Rwanda. And you, what do you feel like you're going to get this prize for the best dress?
It's the kind of life I ever wanted. Money, power, moves, and it does. And I also went to like a seminary school too, like where I'm supposed to be like a reverend father. I've always been around music all my life. Yeah, I mean, it's up to every artist to know what motivates them. I saw you with the content, tell me nonsense. Say we no get in memo, take the content. Check my watch, you go see na catch timing.
Adventures across the African continent.
See breathtaking wildlife, stunning landscapes,
and out of this world technologies.
Meet incredible scientists
and learn fantastic facts.
Explore, discover, be amazed.
Be part of the next generation of African change makers.
Be a part of Engine, Africa's #1 science discovery program. Yay!
We're learning every day.
Are you an aspiring media practitioner, a graduate, or you just want to advance your skills in television production? Then welcome to Kenyatta University, where education meets innovation. KUTV, the premier university television station in Kenya, is now offering short courses in TV studio, field technical operations, and video editing. Through these courses, you will acquire hands-on skills on camera operations, media production, 870-4255 or SMS us on 0739 110 544. KUTV, a new experience.
of the night. I'm here with the activists on climate justice. Now, climate change has sparked a global debate, and while long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns can be natural due to changes in the sun's activity or large volcanic eruptions, human activities are reported to be the main driver of climate change, mainly through burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas. Climate justice has been introduced as a way of finding solutions to the climate crisis, which involves only reducing emissions or protecting the natural world, but also doing so in a way which creates a fairer and more just and equal world in the process. Now, the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, that is PASJA, in partnership with Kenyatta University, opened the third Nairobi Summer School of Climate Justice cohort in Nairobi, Kenya, on Monday, July 3rd, and will be closing on the 15th. That will be on Saturday. Now, tonight, associates of the Climate Justice Group join us in studio for a recap on the 2 weeks campaign on climate justice. The 2 weeks campaign on climate justice. Now, Edon Senyene Ndunobongi is the founder and executive director of Blue Green Initiative for Sustainable Development, and Oumal Khed Yassin Abdi is an environmental consultant and sustainability professional. All right, welcome to our studios this evening.
Oh, thank you so very much.
I hope I've not butchered
I was actually expecting that part too, because it happens everywhere. But you tried. My name is Ediong Senyene Ndunobong. Good evening from Nairobi, Kenya.
Okay. Maybe you can maybe tell us how you pronounce your name.
Okay, I am Oumal Khair Yassin Abdi from Djibouti, and I'm honored to be with you guys tonight.
All right, welcome to KTV. So I want to start with you, Edu. Allow me to call you Edu.
Ediong is fine.
Okay. Yeah. You are the founder and the executive director of Blue Green Initiative for Sustainable Development. Maybe you can tell us more about Blue Green and what it does.
Okay, thank you so very much. Blue Green Initiative for Sustainable Development is a youth-led organization. We come to realize that there are so many challenges pertaining to the environment, but what really the problem is lack of knowledge, lack of information, particularly among the young people, because we know that young people without being informed will not know the right actions to take. So we came up with the initiative to see that we train young people on climate education, and also not just training them, we take climate action. And with that, we've been able to, encourage a lot of young persons. There's a project we run in Nigeria where I'm from. We call it the Green School Project. So we go into schools, primary, secondary schools, and then we train school children on climate change, and of course how they could take action to remediate the problem we are currently facing in the world.
Okay. And for Nairobi Summer School, maybe what role are you playing there? Are you one of the learners? Because I understand it is that cohort. We are in that cohort now.
Yeah, first I must say a very big thank you to Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance for finding it pertinent to gather youth. And this time around, not just within the African continent, but across the globe, or the global south, let me put it that way. Yeah, I'm one of the participants. I came here to learn, but then as duty calls, I do not just learn, I volunteer to serve in different capacities I deem it necessary, or where I see a need. So I'm here to learn first of all, but then I've been helping out in diverse ways where the chances are available.
Okay. Now, Yassin, what school are you also doing the same thing it does, learning and also volunteering?
Yes, I am so very much doing the learning and also taking up a few other roles as a volunteer, because I believe that together we go faster. So yes.
Okay, and by the way, you say that you have interest in gender and women's empowerment issues in the context of climate change. Maybe you can tell us about this and maybe the policies that you are pushing for to promote sustainable practices?
Thank you so much for your question. It's actually a very interesting question because gender plays a crucial role in climate change, environmental issues, and in fact in climate justice. Because women and children are most oftenly affected by climate change in a very disproportionate way. So they are the one that bear the brunt of climate change's impacts the most. But women are not only victims, they are also change makers. So with that being said, it's really important to understand, first of all, the role that women have in the community as agents of change. Then from there, we can push for their empowerment, socially, economically, and also in an educative aspect, so that they can build their own resilience against climate change. And the different policies that we normally, even back home when I'm involved in community empowerment in the aspect of climate change, the policy that we put forward for women are first of all mainstreaming gender in climate issues, giving them that voice so that they can have their own perspective put into place, enabling them economically, financially, so that they can diversify their own source of income. Because, for example, now, if farmers women are dealing with drought or with water scarcity, which are extreme weather related impacts, what happens to them is that they lose their own source of livelihood. So what we do there, it's to empower them with income. They cannot only rely on agricultural produces or their farming products. They can go into how can I say, into selling other stuffs, but then still that's going to bring the money to maintain the households. So yeah.
Okay, so are you saying women are the most affected by climate change?
No, this is one thing that I need to correct. When we're talking about women, when we're talking about gender, we're not referring to women. Gender is about women as well as men, boys and girls. But the issue of the impact of climate change when it comes to women is a disproportionate issue, right? So women are disproportionately affected by the impact of climate change in the aspect of, now let me give you an example, right? We all come from, in this context, in the African context, we all come from African communities. So in the African communities, women are caregivers. They provide the food, they go fresh water, they do the cooking and all that, right? So in that perspective, when they are dealing with environmental change that are reducing, their food or their clean water, they are impacted directly, right? Men are also impacted. Men are impacted in ways of if there's no farming to do, they go to the cities, and that's climate migration. So men leave women in rural, especially in rural settings, to go to the cities to look for, to look for jobs, while they leave the woman to tackle the harsh task at home, like farming in very, very, very extreme weather conditions. So if we consider that part, I can say that women are disproportionately impacted by climate change.
Okay.
Yes.
So in this case, we're mostly focusing on the rural woman.
Okay, that's a very interesting question. But when we're speaking about the impact of climate change, the impact of climate change happens everywhere. We're not only focusing on the rural woman. I just took that as an example. But even when you consider urban settings, it's the same impact, right? So in cities and in our rural communities, I can prove to you that I can claim or confirm that women are impacted by climate change more than any other member of the society.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Earlier on, I was checking the meaning of climate justice, and I saw that it entails, ensuring the representation, inclusion, and protection of the rights of those most vulnerable to effects of climate change. Now, perhaps, what is climate justice, just for the sake of maybe the viewer who needs a clear, an elaboration of what climate justice really is? I want to start with you, Edu.
All right, thank you so very much. If it was in Nigeria, I don't know how the pidgin here in Kenya is. I would have loved to put it in pidgin, but I wouldn't want to try that. So let me see how to make it very common, because I wouldn't want to go academics. We are from Africa. I'm from the Niger Delta region in Nigeria, and my state in particular happens to be an oil-producing state, and we've had. For about 56 years now, we've had the presence of Shell, ExxonMobil, and all of those international oil companies, who've been causing serious environmental crisis. So you want to connect. When you're talking about climate justice, you're also referring to environmental justice. And then in environmental justice, there are issues of ecocide, where there are crimes seen against nature by these international oil organizations or oil companies, if you want to put it so. And for instance, in Nigeria, there's a place called the Ororo oil well, where Ororo in Nigeria in Yoruba means oil. And if you go to that place, fire is burning as we speak on a high sea. And so you imagine such a situation. Now, who are the major persons responsible for climate change? Africa contributes about, I think, just about 4%. There's some narratives that would tell you 6%. That's why I said I don't want to go academics. But if you go to the global north, the Americas, the Europe, and all of those, they are the ones contributing. And now China is even doing the same, contributing more to climate change. And in Africa, for instance, we produce the crude oil, or they extract or exploit the crude oil. Let me not even use extract. They exploit the crude oil and then take it raw to their countries to process, and then bring back the processed product to sell even at a higher cost. They are the ones making the money while we remain perpetually poor, and our environment is being impacted upon. So now the call for climate justice is, you are the highest polluter, you are the one causing the ecocide, you are the one committing crime against nature, you are the one causing us to, have bad air to breathe. Can you pay for this? Bring back, let's start the reparation. Since you are the one causing all of this, you must also take responsibility. So that's the place of the call for climate justice. And now, when you're talking about climate justice, there are so many elements you want to put together. We have the economic justice, we have the social justice, we have so many things you want to put together. So it's simply put, a call for the people who's caused so much damage to nature in Africa, affecting us, the people, to see how, not even see how to commit to, saying that they pay for whatever damage they've caused.
Yeah. What is, Yasin, what is your perspective of climate justice?
I totally agree with my colleague. Simply put, for me, climate justice is social justice, right? Because, and it also refers to the equitable distribution of the burdens and the benefit of climate change mitigation and adaptation. That's the generic definition of climate justice, right? But in terms of social justice, climate justice, it's a concept, right? That push forward injustices that are happening in our societies in the aspect of environmental changes. So for example, if you have a polluted land, the people who inhabit that specific area are, because they don't have the means, or because they don't have the right representation, legal representation, or because they don't have that kind of voice to go outside and, push those people polluting their own land. In that aspect, what is happening to the people there? It's inequality, it's injustice. because they don't have their say. They don't know how whatever is happening around them, sometimes discussed as development project, is going to impact their lives and the lives of their generations. So for me, climate justice is simply social justice. When you tackle issues of social inequalities, you are in the same time, correcting what has gone wrong environmentally. So yeah.
Okay, and by the way, it is the youth mostly who are being, involved in the fight for climate justice. For instance, even in the Nairobi Summer School, most of the people in these cohorts are the young people.
Yeah.
So how is the fight for climate justice relevant for the youth? I want to start with you, Ed.
Okay, thank you. Like I had said, young people, it's just like when you were asking my colleague about the gender roles, and she talked about the vulnerability of women and children. And you look at the time, if you look at the, how do I put it, the time clock or the clock for humanity, the old guys are already phasing out. And when you're talking about sustainability, you're talking about the future. And who are the future? It is the young people. And there are reports that I think that the current set of young people, by the time most of them get into their late 20s, that about 100 million of them would have gone into extreme poverty as a result of climate change. And there are even scarier reports that about 20% of the global population of young people, particularly in Africa, will be forced into climate-induced migration. And so you see, with this report, and of course they are scientific, and scientific reports do not just come by say or hearsay. It's after intense effort to see that they prove their onions, and of course get to know exactly what it is that they come up with these publications or data. So if as a young person and you are coming through with this, or you're coming across this report, you're seeing them, you're reading them, and you do not get into action, I don't know what you'll be waiting for. I don't know what will inspire to take action. The old people have done their part. So the young people must, and of course the movement has already begun. So it's incumbent on the young people to say that they get involved. Do not sit on the fence. Get involved. Demand, get knowledge first. And that is why when we as an opener, I had to give my gratitude to Park Jan and the KU for gathering us to impact us with knowledge. So as young people in Africa particularly, and of course the other part of the global north, you should gain relevant knowledge to see that you get involved in the movement. Because if we do not get it right, I wonder what we bequeath to the next generation. Because as Christians, we talk about rapture and all of that. But what if rapture does not happen and you have to bequeath a failing environment to your children or even your children's children? So it's a call for everyone, young people, the old people have done their part. As a young person, wherever you are, in Africa, in the global south, and by the way, global south are those countries that are less developed. We have the least developed country, we have the developing countries, and so those are the countries that have been addressed to be the global south. And
are the youth being empowered enough to fight climate change?
Before I answer that question, I want to remind our viewers and everybody here that most movement in Africa, the one that we're fighting for independence, the one that we're fighting for social justices and all that, were carried out by youth. Nkrumah of Ghana was young, Nyerere of Tanzania was young, and Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso was young when they were fighting for a just cause. So the reason why youth is being emphasized when it comes to climate justice is because they have a voice and a representation which they can use to push forward